Hello, this is Ken, and thank you for tuning in to the Model Building and Retirement channel. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to take this 3D resin engine, 572 big block Chevy, and turn it into this. Stick around right after the intro, and I'll show you how it's done. Sponsored by Model Makers Workshop. Need parts for your next model project? Model Makers Workshop has you covered with the best aftermarket accessories around. And by Gallery, your one-stop shopping for all your airbrush needs. So this Chevrolet 572 supercharged big block 3D printed engine was sent to me courtesy of Bryce at Model Makers Workshop. And I will have a link in the description and a discount code above where you can purchase this and get 10% off. Anyways, in this video, I'm going to show you how we inspect it, prepare it, paint it, and assemble. Okay, so the first thing about prepping and testing out your resin before you start painting or assembling or anything is to go through and inspect everything, clean them up, test fit, dry fit everything first. And for example, you know, these come with the supports already removed, but they're not 100% removed. Like if you carefully look at this header, you'll see a couple supports in there. And they're very delicate, but they snap off really easy. So I'll use something like my little X-Acto knife here and just get in there and break them off. You can hear them like snap, like they're brittle. Okay, so that was removed. Here you can see right in the block, right where the heads are going to go into the block, that there's a piece left here. So all you do is you kind of get your X-Acto knife in there and pry and bend, and you'll hear them snap right off. Okay, so then next thing you want to do is like check fitment. Like on this one head here, this is the side that's going to mate flat against the block. And they broke it away and removed all the supports, but it's a little bit prickly and bumpy there, if you can see that. So you want to just clean that up a little bit. So this is a very mild little sanding stick. And I also have some 800 wet dry sandpaper available here. But you just want to take something that's relatively flat. And you can see as soon as I start sanding, the little bumps are exposed here. So you just want to lightly sand. And this stuff sands so much easier than the plastic of a model. So be careful. Don't get too aggressive. And, you know, use light grit sandpapers. Like, I don't think you're going to need anything probably more aggressive than 800 max. And you don't want to breathe the dust particles of this either. You know, I'm reading that these resins are toxic to some degree. So, you know, you want to wear a respirator. I'm not for the purpose of this video, but so I'm just cleaning that up a little bit. Now, I'm going to test it to the block. And you'll see that each head is designed for each side of the block because these little square pegs fit into the square holes. So this one goes on this side. So you just want to test fit it. And that's a good snap fit, really. So that's a real nice piece. But I've seen where these are not so fine. And what you could do is just carefully sand that square down a little bit if you needed to. Because the one thing is you don't want to force resin. It looks hardy, but it's really not that hardy, so it can't take much in the way of force. Like if you're trying to force a piece in like this, you can very well crack it. So, okay. And of course, regular model glue does not work, so you have to use CA glue, or super glue as they call it. So right now it's just a dry fit, test fit. Okay, this one here, once again, has a little bit of that prickly to it. So I'm just going to sand those down because, you know, that can have a little bit of effect on fitment. You don't want like a gap between those. But it sands off so super easy. I mean, you can see I'm putting almost no effort in whatsoever. Okay, we'll test that one. Now, it's designed to fit only one way, one side, but you do have to have the head oriented with the block. So the outside here where the spark plugs and the headers go, and make sure they're aiming out and not up. Okay, so that's a little tight. I don't want to force that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my little sanding stick, but you can use even your X-Acto knife here and try to clean that up a little bit. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of carving upwards, or you can just take a sanding stick and just lightly shave down that peg. Also, if you have a small enough piece of sandpaper or something, you can go in right here to this rectangle. But same thing, I can take my X-Acto blade, and you can see, if you watch the dust right on that blade there, just scraping back and forth, I'm picking up dust, which means that I'm opening that hole. I'm just kind of going back and forth. Okay, now we'll test it. Okay, snapped right into place. Nice fit. Now you're going to super glue that. It doesn't have to be a snap fit. It can be a loose fit, but as long as it fits. Okay, so that's the way you prep and clean it. Same thing here with this transmission. Has two little tiny pegs that go into the back of the block here. And sometimes they're sized too tight where you may have to take your little pin vise and just, enlarge those holes a little bit. But we'll test it here and see. Okay, that's a good fit. Actually holds on its own there. But just inspect the parts. Make sure, you got to find out where the supports were. Like this one's cleaned up really nice. A little bumpy right on the bottom of that bow housing there. So I'll just lightly sand. And that's all it takes. Okay, so just kind of go through everything the same way. And my understanding is that if you tried to paint resin without priming it first, that it kind of absorbs the paint. It's like painting over drywall at your house. If you put brand new drywall up, if you don't prime and seal it first, your paint just kind of just sucks right into that paper. So I'm told that the resin acts that way too. So we are going to prime this first before we do any painting. Assemble it as much as I can to go to paint. So only things that are going to be likewise colored. So for example, just the oil pan and the block and the valve covers will go red. And the headers are going to go aluminum. Transmission, be steel, cast steel. Glue, super glue just a few pieces together. Okay, and then before I go to primer too, I'm drilling out the heads here. So I'm going to use this little black wire. So I have a small drill bit, the same diameter as the wire. And what's nice about the heads is it's already got a little notches for them, but they're just not deep enough. It'd be tough to glue your wire right into the head there. So I'm just going to drill each one of those out so that, because the wires don't have to go far, the coil pack is going to be attached right to this head. So my wires are going to be relatively short, but this way I can make my wires a 1/4 inch longer and just push them into here and height them under the valve covers. Any important surface. Okay, one hole done. Next. Now I got to draw out the coil packs too, and they are extremely fragile. But you want to do all this drilling before you paint because, parts are small enough and you're getting a little raised area, so you're gonna have to sand, filing or whatever. Just taking this little brush and wiping it, and then I'm blowing on it real good. Okay, it looks like they have an indent just big enough to glue these wires in. All right, I'm gonna find my smallest little drill bit here and drill that out. And I apologize, I wanted to show you in a little bit better detail the drilling for the coil packs if you so choose to do wiring on your engine. But my footage wasn't very clear on that, so this has already been primered, so I'm going to just back up and demonstrate what I did here. Okay, so to drill out those little coil packs, I'm using my little Craft 911 Precision pin vise that I got on Amazon. And like all the rest of my supplies and products and tools, I will have a link in my description from Amazon, of course. I do have I have a membership for them with the free shipping, and I take advantage of that because almost every day I'm ordering something, even if it's a $1.99 item. So anyways, this is a really nice little pin vise because it comes with the pin vise. You got some larger drill bits here. It looks like all the way up to an 1/8 inch or bigger right here. And then you get these really nice micro drill bits here. Take a look at these. Very tiny little ones. So I matched this one up to the spark plug wire here that I'm using. And I don't know what diameter that wire is, and I can barely read this. It says a 0.5 by 7. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I have a little X on there. So all you do is you open your pin vise up, tighten it down, and I just hold my finger on this end and spin against my part, and I get a nice precision drill there. So anyways, back to the coil pack. But what I did, and I'm hoping that the video is going to capture it real good here, but you got your coil pack, and then you also got your plug-in for your electronic that goes to the coil pack. So this is going to go to your ignition module to send power to your coil pack, or to take your spark from your spark plugs and send it to your engine. But you just get that in there really tight, and it's a very tiny wire, but you just get it in the hole and you just start drilling. Very fragile, just take your time. Same with these little pins here. Find something to poke it, like maybe a needle or something, to get it centered real good. But originally I thought they were deep enough to stick a wire in them, but I honed them out just a little bit. But that's going to accept wire. And I'm not sure of this diameter wire here. I got this at Joann Fabrics before they closed, but it's a big spool black wire, and it's very, very tiny, so that's what the drill bit is, and that's what I'm going to use for spark plug wire. Or you can use a kit like these pre-wired distributors have, except for, you know, this engine doesn't have a distributor, it has coil packs. You could just take this pre-wired distributor, cut the wires off, and use those wires. But what I did is I matched that diameter wire up to that spool of wire, and it gave me an idea of what diameter I needed to drill for. And I also got, once again from Model Maker's Workshop, is the spark plug boots, and got 3 different packs here. So the first pack is like a 35 or maybe a 45 degree angle, and then we got a 90 degree boot cut there. And then there's a third pack, which is just a straight on boot. So you can put your wires into there and then into your block or at your distributor or whatnot. So I'll be utilizing those. When we get to that point, I'll be showing you this stuff. So anyways, I wanted to show you how to drill those. Okay, so next up, we're going to go to the primer stage. All right, so I got all my resin parts ready to go to primer, except for one. I got to get another seat here. There's no real good way to grab that. So what I use is a tacket here, and I'll have a link in my description for this, as well as everything else that I use, tools and supplies. I have a link in my video description, but you just pinch off a little bit of this blue tack, and I'll put it under the seat here. And I'll take like a popsicle stick here. Press that on real good. And that ain't going nowhere. And then I'm just using a styrofoam holder there to stick it into. And then for like my tires, what I use is like cardstock here. I'll just cut a strip of cardstock, and it can expand or contract depending on what size ID you have in your tires. But I will just stick that in my tire, spread it out to where it grabs a little bit, and then I'll take my alligator clip and squeeze it right where the seam is there, and that'll hold that wheel for spraying. Okay, so I'm going to be spraying with Kaleido acrylic gloss black primer. Be the first time I use this stuff. It's supposed to be thin and ready right out of the bottle, but you can thin it with their thinner if you want to, and there's also a retarder thinner that you could use if it's trying a little too quick on you. I'm gonna try this with just a drop of retarder in the bowl, and I'm gonna be spraying that with my Mobius TG 0.5 premium airbrush with the fan tip. Pretty nice brush. Okay, so I will meet you at the booth. All right, so I'm going to mix up some of this Kaleido black primer, and I'm going to use a little bit of the retarder thinner in there. So you shake them up real good. They got a ball bearing in them, which I've already shaken this up really well. Okay, and then I'll just throw in a few drops of this retarder. Stir that up real good with a pipette. And I like to draw from the bottom and then squirt it out on the top, kind of recirculate that a little bit to make sure that the thinner is getting mixed in with the paint. Okay, so at the booth here, I start out with a very light little coat and slowly work my way up with successive coats until I got good coverage with the paint. And I'm using about 18 to 20 psi pressure, and allowing, if I'm doing wet coats, I'm allowing like 10 minutes between coats. So I'm going to speed this up, and you can just watch the process. Okay, so the next step in the process is to go ahead and separate your items according to the colors they're going to be painted. And I chose to do it as follows. Over here in this little right side column, these small little details, they're going to be hand painted. So I don't have anything mixed up for that currently. But with the engine block and the valve covers, I'm going to be going with Kaleido K003 Gloss Red. And this is from their primary colors set. And then I've got my blower and my heads and my little attachment to the blower for the air cleaner. And that is going to be painted in Kaleido Metal Aluminum. This is from their metals kit, or you can buy these individual. And I'll have a link in the description and a code up above there for a discount, but you get 10% off if you use the code Model Building Ken. All right, then my headers, I'm going to paint stainless steel. And then just for variety, the transmission, I know it's made of some sort of alloy steel, cast alloy. I'm going to just shoot that with gunmetal to give it a little bit of a variety in color there. And so these are water-based acrylics, and they're pre-mixed, so no mixing required. So I'm going to go right to the airbrush and shoot this stuff, and I'll meet you over there. Oh, one thing too before we get over to the booth is I'm going to shoot these all in one session. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to have a cup of really hot water next to me, and I'm going to clean the airbrush with just water, run water through the airbrush between colors without a thorough cleaning. And what the trick is with that is you start with your lightest color and work yourself down to the darkest color. I just wanted to point that out to you. And then we'll clean the brush very thoroughly. All right, I have all my parts prepared to paint here. And what I'm using, I was at Hobby Lobby the other day, and I almost bought those little plastic holders that these alligator clips with their sticks go into, and that was like $5.99, and it was just one little square. So I went and got, from the same store, I think this was $4.99, and these are for, you know, fake flower arrangements. So these are those little flower bricks. So you get 6 pieces for $5. And they're reusable. I mean, they got 4 sides to them. You can just stick your pieces in there randomly. They don't leave debris in your booth. I thought that was a really good bargain. So I had the one piece in my cart. I took it back as soon as I came across these. Thank goodness for my wife, who is a crafty little craft girl in her own right, and she turned me onto these. So, all right, so I am going to spray my aluminum from Kaleido first, which is going to be, and I separated everything by material here. So on this corner, I've got my heads and my blower and my little air cleaner inlet there. So that's going to get aluminum, and we'll start out with that. Okay, so I got that, they have a little ball bearing in them, so I shook that up really good. Now these lids from the factory are on extremely tight. I actually use a little pair of pliers to break that loose. But you do want to reseal them as tightly as possible. Now these bottles, you can pour them into a cup or whatnot, but they're not really designed to refill. I suppose you could probably carefully pry that tip off and pour back into your bottle, which I haven't tried yet. But what I'm going to do is, since I'm only going to be using trace little amounts here, I am going to just pour a little bit into my bowl of my airbrush. Okay, so I'm just starting out with a nice light little coat here, about 18 to 20 psi, and I'm using my Mobius 0.3 millimeter airbrush. And I'll tell you what, this stuff covers really, really well. So I really didn't do multiple coats here. I just went with one light little coat and just kept dusting around until my color was right. And only if necessary, I went back and gave it a second coat, which I think I only did on just the heads there. Okay, I'm going to speed this up a little bit. So between each color, I had a coffee mug with some hot water in it, and I would just use a pipette and fill the bowl of the airbrush and just keep running it through until it sprayed clean, and then I went into my next color. So my next color was stainless steel, and the only thing I'm painting there is just the 2 headers, so it's only 2 little pieces, so I only put a couple drops in the cup, and that's all I needed. There, and I'm to my paint. Once again, going extremely light here. And when you go light like that, you're able to really get into the nooks and crannies of those headers. And you want to keep spinning this all the way around so that you're getting all the pipes. I'm going to hold that up closer because my toothpick started spinning. Second header. So these little paints that are ready to spray, they come in 20 milliliter sizes, but like on the metal colors, for example, you know, I plan on only really using those for these little intricate pieces for motors, brake parts, brake discs, things of that nature. So when you only need a few drops for each paint job, a bottle of that should last you quite some time. Okay. I went on so light that I'm just going to go ahead and hit that a second time real quick. Cover's really, really nice. Okay, so once again I flushed out the airbrush with warm water and went with the gunmetal color to paint the transmission and bow housing. Alright, then we're on to our final color, and that is the red. Just spray, make sure I'm out of water, yep. Dust coat. Now that red covering over black is probably going to take several coats, so I'm going extremely light here. It is a very light misty spray. And you want to go light because this has some details that I'm going to be painting, like it has the 572 and some lines in it that are raised, which I'm going to be going back in either white or silver. Okay, so we're onto the block, and not everything gets painted on the block, so we don't waste paint here. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes. Let's get another coat of red on there. Okay, so it's still the night before I'm going to clear coat, but it's been several hours since I put the red on there. Okay, try the other one. I switched over to a marker instead because the paint pen was dried out on me. I guess they do have a shelf life. Okay, so now I'm going to just clear coat over that. Get a light up here. Yeah, so when I clear coat it, it'll clear coat over that. It's kind of just like the reference photo that I was looking at. Okay, off to clear coat. All right, so back at the booth, I'm going to be spraying just the red parts with the Kaleido acrylic varnish gloss. It's a clear coat, and it's probably gonna take 2 to 3 coats to do this. So I'm just going to spray these. I'm going to use my Mobius 0.3 millimeter spray gun at about 18 to 20 psi pressure. And I'm just shooting a nice light coat to start with. Just going light until I get a little bit of gloss into it. Oh, about 18 to 20 psi. Just not loading it up. By the time I get to my second or third coat, I'll go a lot wetter. Okay, so I skipped forward to my third and final coat of clear, and this time it was a medium to wet coat to get a nice gloss on there, and I'll speed it up. Okay, so the clear varnish has cured overnight, about 24 hours. So I still have some more detailing to do, but what I'm going to do is assemble the motor first, and then detail the parts on there. So once again, you want to test fit all your parts before you actually go to glue. But for glue, I'm going to be using a CA glue, super glue. You cannot use regular modeler's glue because resin does not melt like plastic, and that's what you're doing when you use regular model glue, is you're melting the plastic to weld it together. So in this case, you do have to super glue. And I'm using Starbond multi-purpose medium super glue, but you can use any super glue. I also have on hand these here, which are very popular, Bob Smith Enterprises, Bob Smith Industries. I've got their extra thick and their medium, and those work really well too. And you can even use like Gorilla super glue. Okay, but before you glue, you want to just go ahead and test fit everything again, because now you've painted. You might have tested and cleaned up the parts before to make sure they fit, but after painting, it may be tight again. Okay, so that like square hole there is just not fitting really well. So I'm just going to go in here and clean that up a little bit. And again, the heads only go on one way. There's the right side and the left side. We'll press that in, let it set up for a few seconds. Okay, I don't want to bore you too much, but I do want to show you how it was assembled, so I will just speed it up here. Okay, it's really starting to look pretty good. It's taking its shape here. Now I got some detailing to do. You know, I got to paint the air filter, got to paint the pulleys, I got to wire the coil packs and the spark plugs. But we're getting close. It's really getting to be a nice little detailed, good engine there. Get some light on it. There we go. Okay, so this next part's kind of tedious, but I'll try to get it on video for you. I'm all thumbs here. But I got my wires in on my one side from the coil pack to the spark plugs. And what I'm using is an old distributor that I never used from Gopher Racing. I got that at one of the shows recently. But I like the yellow wire, so I'm just clipping it because I have black wire, but I don't have yellow wire. And because I'm going to be doing the coil power in black, I wanted to have something contrasting for the wires. So I got that installed there. So now I'm going to work on the coil packs here. Okay, so that wire that I was using that I had gotten at Joann Fabrics, it's the right diameter, but it's just a little too rigid. And for as delicate as those coil packs are, you try to move them or twist them, they just break off. The glue won't hold. So instead, I'm going to move on to a solder. And this solder is, let me see if I can find a diameter. Looks like it's 0.3 millimeter. So it's even probably a little bit thinner, and it's very soft and ductile. So what I did is I kind of just laid it out and painted it with my paint pen. And it's going to need touched up because every time you handle it or move it, it's going to just have an issue with paint coming off. But much more flexible, so I'm going to dip it into the clear. Okay, so after dipping that in a little bit of glue, I'm just very carefully sticking it into the pre-drilled holes for the coil wires on the coil pack and holding it for just a few seconds for it to set. And then I'm going to reinforce it with a drop of glue afterwards. And then I'll also come by with some flat black paint and touch up all my wires and the coil packs after the fact. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up so you can see the rest of the process. Okay, so what I did is I twisted the whole harness and I wrapped it around the back of the block, and then I continued on to the other side doing the same thing and married them both together, which I'm not going to show you that part of it because it's the same, more of the same. But now we'll go over and I'll show you how I did the spark plug wires on the other side. All right, let me give a little demo on how you do the spark plug wires here. Once again, a little fresh glue in my cap here. And what I did is I cut 4 wires that are probably about 4 times too long, but that allows me to get them glued into the coil pack and let that glue set up, and then I can manipulate these through the header pipes and then trim them down. So I just dip my end in the glue. and then carefully stick it into, wrong one. Almost, I stuck it in the coil pack power. Don't have to go deep, just deep enough where you could stick that glued wire and it'll stay. You know, you can't just butt it, it won't stay. Probably closed up a little bit too when I painted. Okay, I'm going to get the other 3 wires installed to the coil pack. I'll speed that up and then I'll be right back to show you how I do the bottom where I put the spark plugs into the block. Okay, so after that glue sets up for just, you know, a minute, then you can very carefully maneuver the end of the wire through the header. I leave it long, it's just easier to pull on the end. It's not so rigid at that point. Then you can trim it before you know, trim it after. Right in the hole. If I would have known that, it would have been trimmed. Okay, that's kind of what I'm after. There we go. Sort of like threading a needle. Now, if I was lucky enough to nail it like I did, I got right in that hole, I would have trimmed it to that size. So now, okay, so I just stick it through the hole, no need to even glue it because it's rigid enough. And I only use the spark plug boot on the last spark plug that you'll see in the back of the block there on both sides. Otherwise it's invisible. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward so that we could just see the rest of them go on there. Okay, so I let the glue set up on these coil wires. So now I'm just going to carefully straighten out all this solder. This stuff is extremely soft. The wire was too stiff, and this stuff is almost too soft. Start twisting. And I'm connecting the left side with the right side. Plenty of excess here. In fact, I have too much here. I'm going to trim this back. Okay, so now I have a little harness that I can, where am I going to go with it? I don't know. Could go to the firewall, could go to the wheel well. Just don't know yet, so I'll leave that alone. Okay, so all we got to do now is paint that. And I'm just going to paint that soldered wire. Okay, so that is now painted, and now I just got to finish detailing the engine, the pulleys and whatnot. Okay, so for the air filter here, I just put a drop of this Kaleido red into the cap here, and I just touched it there and painted that air filter. So now we need to do the pulleys. And I am going to use chrome. Fusion Firm chrome, ultra shining silver, fluid silver. Okay, so once again, I'm just going to speed up the footage here a little bit. We'll go 4x just while I get the chrome on the pulleys, and we'll be right back for the final reveal. Okay, so she's a really nice looking engine, but after putting it inside the front engine compartment of that car, I don't think you're going to even see my spark plug wires. What a shame. So I used Fusion Firm on the pulleys there to kind of shine them up a little bit. You're going to spend that kind of money on an engine. You're probably going to have either polished billet or chrome pulleys. But I think it came out really nice. And here's just a couple quick stills of it. So it looks really good. Now I got to modify the kit. This is going to go on my USAC 69 Camaro, and it's sitting about a ½ inch too high, just the first dry fit. So I've got to do some modifications to the chassis, but I'm sure I'll get her to fit. So hope you enjoyed the video, and it was a lot of fun doing this. And I've got several more engines to build, so they're going to go in some more of my Rustamods and my street rods that are coming up. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.